The Nonviolent Medicaid Army of the Poor is a growing politically independent force of the poor and dispossessed, united across identities, regions, races, and issues, modeled after MLK's Nonviolent Army of the Poor from the Poor People's Campaign of 1968. And here in this picture, you can see Nadia from United Workers, Maryland. Those who are on or excluded from Medicaid represent the diversity of the entire working class and are impacted by every single front of struggle: housing, living wages, food, education, debt, migration, incarceration. The fight for Medicaid is common to the North and the South. And in this picture, we have Linda of Vermont Workers Center. Being on or excluded from Medicaid objectively unites a huge section of the leading social force, the group of people that has the most to gain and the least to lose from a fundamental transformation of society. And here we have Glenn from the Pennsylvania Union of the Homeless sharing his Medicaid Monday story. I will pass it to Nijmi and Kelly. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Yuling. And thanks, Susan and Becca and Jillian. Thanks everyone who's been part of this call, setting it up, which is a lot of folks. And thanks for folks doing tech tonight. My name is Nijmi Zakia Zarinko. I'm in Central Appalachia, Pennsylvania with Put People First PA. And I'm just very grateful to be here with you all tonight. Very grateful to be in space, that you're here. And first of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone here tonight so much for all that you do. This call is very definitional. We're going to just try to lay some groundwork and work to get on the same page and bring our experiences and our questions into the discussion and especially our small groups. So first of all, I just want to say, and I think y'all can relate to this, that every day our class has to make a way out of no way, right? You might have heard Willie, Baptist say this at some point, this concept of making a way out of no way, right? And I want to, if you can relate to that, if you feel that, if you've seen that, if you've experienced that, if you know that, throw up an emoji and maybe put something in the chat, right, about the ways that our class has to make a way out of no way. And this is why, we feel that we are capable, right? We are capable because it takes great creativity, it takes great persistence, it takes great commitment to make a way out of no way, to figure out how to deal with impossible situations, to take care of ourselves and our families, right? This is what making a way out of no way is, because we know that the system is not set up to meet our needs. And so we're constantly having to figure out, how do we survive in the face of that? So what I want to say about that is that we're constantly doing care, right? Because we have to make a way out of no way. We're constantly doing community care, but we don't always see it like that, right? And I know, and I've seen, and we see all the time, we're taking care of each other's kids, right? We're helping each other run errands, get to the store, get to the food bank, get to appointments, right? We're reminding each other, hey, did you make that doctor's appointment yet? Did you follow up on your Medicaid cutoff appeal? What are some more ways? Put it in the chat that you are participating constantly in care, right? Care work for our class, for other people in our organizations, for people in our families, for our neighbors, right? We know that we are doing that, and we are grounded, right, in the interpersonal and the community ways that we're taking care of each other. We're doing that all the time. We want to recognize that and celebrate that and lift that up. And that's not what this call is about, right? It's not about those interpersonal ways that we're doing that, that we naturally do that because that's our tendency as human beings, is to take care of each other. This call is about how we make practices of community care for our leaders systematic within our organizations and formations to build our movement to abolish poverty. So I'm going to say that again. This call is about how we make practices of community care for our leaders systematic within our organizations and formations to build our movement to abolish poverty. Having said that, we know that people here are coming from organizations and formations that take different forms and that are at different stages of development. So, everything here that we say and talk about tonight, take it in stride and consider it when it is appropriate for your formation's level of development. We're not giving you a template here and saying, okay, go ahead and now implement all of this. We're saying, here's a set of practices and think about when it makes sense to adapt them or adopt them or start to work with them, right, in your formation, in your stage of development, in what's appropriate for you. So we can go to the next slide. Thank you so much. So some other baseline things that we want to share because it's important, right? When we're learning in a space together, we've got to understand what are our assumptions? What are our assumptions that we're coming in with? Because behind everything, there's a set of assumptions, and we want to make those assumptions apparent and transparent. So here's one of our assumptions. This is one of our grounding ideas that caring for ourselves is not an individual task. We can't survive on our own. This cuts against a lot of what we get taught in this society and told in this society, right? Did you ever get a message of like, nope, you're on your own, right? You've got to figure it out. Everybody for every man for themselves, right? That kind of thing. But in reality, none of us would be here. None of us would be here without the labor of millions of working class people historically and today. If you look around you, right, wherever you are, the space that you're in, the things in your life, all of those things are the products of centuries of the development of technology and human labor, not to mention our families, right? The people that took care of us and helped us grow up, the people who take care of us and harvest our food, right? But everything that goes into that entire system, which is the labor of millions of people, right, throughout the world. And we could look at that for every single aspect of our lives. So we have to make sure that we are clear, and this is what we believe in the Nonviolent Medicaid Army, right? Is that none of us would be here without the labor of millions of working class people historically and today, and none of us can meet our needs individually. We know that the society is not organized around meeting our needs. That's why we're in this movement to abolish poverty and to reorganize society to meet our needs. What else is the purpose of a society? What else is the purpose of this, right? If not to meet human needs. We know that society is not organized around meeting our needs right now, and we are building the power to change that. We reject the idea that we are simply individuals who only have responsibility for ourselves or that we can survive on our own. Similarly, our problems aren't individual problems. They are structural problems that are shared by millions of people. And that can be kind of an intense thing to say and to think about, right? There's structural problems that are faced by millions of people and shared by millions of people. But at the same time, I think that's very hopeful, right? Because we don't have to think anymore that my problem is just my own. When you get that letter in the mail cutting you off of Medicaid, or you get that eviction notice, you don't have to think, oh my goodness, now, it's just on me. This is just my problem. No, there's thousands and millions of people who are going through that same damn thing. What if we got together? That's what we're saying in the Nonviolent Medicaid Army. Let's get together and change it. And if we do get together, then we can have the power to change it. So our problems are not individual problems. They're structural problems that are shared by millions of people. And that is where our power ultimately comes from and is derived from. I will pass it to you, Kelly.
Thank you so much, Nijmi. Let's give some love to Nijmi. That was a powerful grounding. So, so we've established this idea of care, this idea that we are not alone, that we can't do things. This system is not designed for us to survive on our own. So how does this like community care fit within our model of the poor organizing the poor, right? That's why we're here. We are building a movement that is organizing the poor. That is us, our class. We often say that political education is central to political organizing. You're here because we're doing education together, right? We're learning from one another. We're studying. We're coming to Saturday schools. But just as political education is central to political organizing, much in the same way, community care is necessary for the poor organizing the poor. If we are to take up Dr. King's unfinished work, we've been talking about this a lot in the last few um, Saturday schools and places, the unfinished work that he recognized and wrote about, and where do we go from here? If we are taking up that unfinished work of organizing solidly and simultaneously in thousands of places across the country, then we must develop many leaders from our class. Now, again, let's go back. Who is our class? Who is our base? The 140 million poor and low wealth people in this country, 90 million of whom are on, who are on or unfairly excluded from Medicaid, right? So when we say that, we think everyone has a right to health care. So if you're not on it, you're excluded and you're unfairly excluded. And often people are excluded because of ridiculous things like making $10 too much or a paperwork error. So this is our base. And not only are we in these situations, we are constantly under attack. Our base is under attack. What are some of the attacks that are happening to us right now? I saw some beautiful things going in the chat. So let's also share some ideas of what are the attacks that are happening to us constantly. What kind of crises are we going through? Whew. Attacks on immigration, the over-policing and the mass incarceration of our communities, the cuts to SNAP, to Medicaid, and now the onerous and cruel and so unnecessary work requirements that are being implemented on these things. The false narratives, the blaming of our class for high medical costs. That is an attack on us directly. That is putting us in a target as if we are the cause of this when we know we are not. The attacks on trans healthcare, the attacks on our immigrant brothers and sisters, all of these things are bombarding us while we are also dealing with how to put food on our table, how to pay our rent, how to keep our lights on, how to just live in this society that under a system that is killing us. And so if this is us, if this is our base, then we're going to have leaders who are coming from this base, right? This is what we're doing. We're doing leadership development. We do not want to be organized by others. We want to organize ourselves. And so we are developing leaders. And as we do that, these leaders are likewise going through these crises, often economic crises, eviction, surprise medical bills. How many of people have shown up and you found out your copay is now huge on something, or your insurance or your Medicaid doesn't approve it? We have to have systems and approaches to how we get people through these crises, right? Not as charity, not as just because we can't, we're we're the poor, right? We're the class that's being impacted, but we can find ways to get our leaders through these crises, and we have to. It's critical. So I'm going to turn it back to Nijmi, and we're going to talk a little bit about sort of get more into these definitions.
Thank you, Kelly. That was awesome. Appreciate this and going passing it back and forth between us in this section. Really appreciate everything that you're sharing here. So we're trying to paint a picture here, and I really appreciate everything that's also being shared in the chat as well. That community care is not charity, right? And community care is also, it's not relatedly to this question of like, it's not charity. It's not sort of setting this goal of like, we're going to help as many people as we can, right? We're going to sort of just put ourselves out there to solve as many problems as we can and help as many people as we can. And I know you're going to talk about this next, Kelly, but I just want to, I want to put that out there because I'm about to say that what we're defining as community care is a system, right, of sustaining our leaders emotionally and materially to keep them, us, in the struggle. And so we do a lot, and I look forward to, more sessions on our national calls, which are the fourth Thursday of the month, and our Saturday schools, which are generally the first Saturday or sometimes the second Saturday if the first Saturday is a holiday, to dig into these questions, even of like how do we define leader? Because we have a definition of a leader that's a little bit different than what you might hear, out there. And Lord knows that we have some very, very bad examples of leaders, in our world today, right? And we do not identify with those qualities, right? We have to come with our own definition, our own conception of what do we mean by a leader. And I put in the chat that for us, we sometimes we say, leaders are not born, they're developed, right? We've been talking about this question of leadership development and this commitment to using the classroom, our study process, the class struggle, our campaigns, right? Our fight for healthcare as a human right, housing as a human right, and other human rights struggles, and our organization, right? The building up of organization and unity in our states, right? Our formations, the places where people connect, using these things to build leaders from our ranks, from the ranks of the poor and dispossessed working class. And so we have our own conception of a leader, and it's not the same as, what we see in society, these horrible examples of what we see. But this is a system of sustaining our leaders. And our leaders are the people who are making a commitment, right? It's the people, like people here tonight in this meeting, the people who are making a commitment to organize and unite our class. And when people have made that kind of commitment, that's like, a leader is worth their weight in gold, right? Someone who's clear, committed, competent, and connected. That's what we're going for. And so it's critical that we support people who have made that kind of commitment to stay in the struggle through all of the challenges of just surviving in this system, because we got to keep going in order to reach and achieve the change that we need. So again, this isn't just about, okay, we know there are so many people out there who need help. We all need help. We all need each other to survive. And this is something that we're talking about systematically to support our leaders who have made a serious commitment to develop their clarity, their commitment, their competence, and connectedness. And secondly, I just want to say that as I started out with in the first place, right? We're not, we know how to care as a class. It's something that we do. It's something that we are consistently doing. And as we develop these practices, we know that this is not just or chiefly the responsibility of people in the so-called caring professions, right? Social workers or therapists. We welcome and we have social workers and therapists in our base. But like everything else we do, from our media work to our political education to our base building, right? We train ourselves in doing these things in a systematic way. We build up our abilities to do these things in a systematic way. And that's the same thing with our systems of care. Many of us have caregiving skills from our work in the healthcare system, in a faith capacity, in our families, in community, or from other places. So this doesn't need to be, a thing that causes us to, think of it as, oh, this is just something that's professionalized, right? Just like when we file and we win Medicaid appeals and we win our people's health care back and we get surprise bills canceled, people are always coming to us and saying, you guys have a bunch of lawyers? And we say, no, we have learned and trained ourselves in how to do that, right? How to make a way out of no way. It's not lawyers, it's actually revolutionary lawyering that we do. And I want us to think about that across the board, that we have to train people up in these skills, build on what they already know, and make all of the collective work that we do across the Nonviolent Medicaid Army something that helps us develop as people, and that includes community care.
Thanks, Nishmi. Sorry, I was getting caught up in some of the beautiful messages that are happening in the chat, and appreciate you all so much. Appreciate you being here. So we need to kind of drill down just a little bit more. Nishmi touched on this, and we're going to talk just a little bit more about this difference between community care and charity, because it's so important that we are clear on this. I'm going to say something that's going to come as no surprise to anyone here, right? Our society is organized on the basis of profit over people's lives, right? Are we all in agreement of that? I think we're all in agreement with that. That the very system in which we live is organized based on profit, profiting over our lives and profiting over from our illness. So this means that there are millions of people with unmet needs in our society. So we get sick, people get richer, people are profiting off of our lives and yet killing us at the same time. And so with millions of people not getting their needs met, we don't have the power to address those unmet needs on a mass scale. Until the working class holds the reins of state power, we're not going to be able to address all these unmet needs on a mass scale. So it's important when we're talking about this, that it's important that we are clear that community care is not about meeting everyone's needs. We just can't. The system is inflicting this, and the system right now has the power. We are building the power to change that. So it's not about simply conducting charity operations that reach the most people. There are hundreds, probably thousands of charity operations out there, right? We see them all the time. And we are not them. We are not the Salvation Army. We are the Nonviolent Medicaid Army. And it's very, very different. I love some of the things I'm seeing in the chat. We are not these things. We are the Nonviolent Medicaid Army, and it is very different. Community care is not just something that we do and walk away. Community care is a critical part of our organizing. And it occurs in an organizing context, which is very different from how other charitable groups are doing it. We're just trying to draw this distinction, and I hope folks are getting with this. We're not bad mouthing all these other things, but it is a whole different thing when we are doing community care within an organizing structure. We have to be able to survive and sustain and to thrive and to stick it out. And in order to do that, we have to have community care that focuses on our committed leaders. You fight for us, and we fight for you. So I hope we're kind of building sort of this distinction between these two things. And we're going to talk now just about some basic approaches to this community care.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kelly. And we are like going at such a good pace and we're right on time. And I feel very grateful and proud for that. So we're gonna actually now hear from folks in 3 states that are part of the Nonviolent Medicaid Army Network. And we're gonna talk about a couple of specific approaches that we employ: listening support and material support / projects of survival. So first, I would like to pass it to Jamie and Marcy from Pennsylvania. They're part of Put People First PA, and they're really powerful leaders on the cutting edge, I would say, of a lot of community care work in our state. And they have so much rich experience and knowledge to share, lessons, successes, challenges, really so much experience, right? Just a lot of experience. And that's what we do. We make the struggle a school. So I would like to pass it to y'all now and really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Nijmi. And Nijmi and Kelly, that was so fire. So thank y'all. What a deep, clear grounding. My name is Jamie, and as Nijmi said, I'm a leader in Put People First PA. I'm one of the co-coordinators of the community care team with Marcy Morgan, who's also pinned on the screen right now. Right now on the screen, you can see a gorgeous picture of a very big event full of community care, which was our 2025 membership assembly that Put People First had back in the fall, that many leaders, I think, on this call were at. And we're going to share a bit about our approach to community care, and then talk about a key piece, which is emotional support through listening. And we can stay on this slide for a bit. And I am going to ask for one reader. So if someone can put their name in the chat, then I will call on you in a bit. So the community care team for Put People First PA coordinates a system of support for and by our leaders so that they, or we, can build and lead the mass movement necessary to end poverty. So we do this in many ways. So you'll hear soon from United Workers about material support. And what we're going to share about is emotional support, another one of those ways that we develop our leaders to build this movement. And so two of our key understandings, one that Nijmi was hitting on before and Kelly was too, that our leaders are our greatest resource. And a second key understanding is that all people are valuable. No one is disposable. So this is directly opposed to ruling class understandings, right? This is directly opposed to what we feel coming down at us from all other parts of society. And this understanding is central to how we relate to one another and how we carry out this work. So could you go to the next slide? And I think we've got Joy said that she would read this. Thank you, Joy. And folks have seen this MLK quote probably many times, maybe some folks for the first time. So Joy, could you go ahead and read this?
Yes, Jamie. Oh, and I got move down to the bottom of the screen. All right. The disposed of this nation, the poor, both white and Negro, live in a cruelly unjust society. They must organize a revolution against the unjust, not against the lives of the persons who are their fellow citizens, but against the structures throughout which the society is refusing to take means which have been called for and which are at hand to lift and load of poverty. There are millions of poor people in the country who have very little or even nothing to lose. If they can be helped to take action together, they will do so with a freedom and a power that will be a new and unsettling force in our complacent national life.
Beautiful, Joy. Thank you.
You're welcome, Jamie.
This quote can be studied, and we should all study it for years. It is so rich. There's so many different parts of it that have so much wisdom to teach us in our organizing. And one piece that we want to lift up right here is King really pointing to what we have kind of bolded and underlined, that we have to organize a revolution against injustice, against the structures, not against our fellow citizens, right? So how do we do this? We study, like in these NVMA Saturday school spaces, to get to the root of the problem. We do this through base building. We come to learn that someone who we've been taught is our enemy is not our enemy. And a key part of that is listening. Central to building the relationships that sustain our organizing is listening. And learning to listen is key to the emotional support that we can give to one another. And so I'm going to pass it to Marcy to share more about that.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm going to introduce a document that our Put People First PA care team wrote over the past year as part of our effort to build a culture of and a capacity for emotional support, not only for our leaders, but also for members. It focuses on why and how we develop the important skill of listening in our movement. And I'm going to read the introduction to the document and then tell you a little bit more about it. It starts with, why is listening an important skill for a leader? We are much more threatening to the system that harms us all, a much stronger movement, when we are engaged in a fight for our unity. If we are going to unite poor and dispossessed people across all lines of difference, we must equip ourselves with the skills to listen well to each other. That's because listening is a vital way that we come to understand each other, to back each other, and to treat each other with complete respect. The oppressive system that we have grown up in hurts each of us in profound ways, often more deeply than we are supposed to show. The system that then minimizes our difficulties and blames us for having them. Our struggles are not our fault, and although it is our responsibility to work through them so that they don't impede our progress, we don't deserve to be blamed for them. We strive to commit to the disciplined practice of loving every member of our class, including those who are difficult for us to engage with. We need a mass movement of the poor, and that will include people who we find difficult. When we battle the root of the problem and not other members of our class, we become more able to take action together, build trusting relationships, and develop leadership. In all that we do, we must fight for our unity, despite the ways that society hurt and divided us. It can be deeply meaningful to build this movement to end poverty and to build a system in which our needs are met and we fundamentally matter. That's the introduction to this new document that we call an orientation to supportive listening. And there are additional sections, which we won't look at now, but we can make the document available to you, where we talk about what are good practices when we listen to each other and when we're sharing our own struggles, and when can we use opportunities to listen to each other. And the last thing I would say in closing is that we'll be having small groups shortly, and we encourage you to take your reflections and questions based on this into your small groups. And in those groups and beyond, give some thought to these questions. What is the connection between listening and threatening the system? And how does listening to each other help us unite across difference? And I'll pass it on to Father Ty.
Thank you, Jamie and Marcy. So I guess I was just, in talking now about material support, I can give some examples of what we're doing here in Maryland with United Workers, but I also think just remembering what we've just heard, and that although we're talking tonight about emotional support and material support, they're not separate. They're like, these are related to one another, and we need all of this together, right? And so we're building towards, in United Workers, having a resilient source of material support for our leaders. Like we've heard, what we've defined community care as not charity again. It's not even mutual aid. This is something deeper. This is about, again, remembering that our most advanced leaders are critical for us. We need leaders who are able to stick and stay for the long haul, and we know that our leadership is attacked by the ruling class and will continue to be attacked. And so we need to be resilient in trying to help our leaders stick and stay, and sometimes that help is necessary. Sometimes, emergencies come up. Our leaders face eviction. They face medical crises. They face devastating cuts in food stamps and might need food 1 month. There's just a lot of material needs that our leaders have had. And we're an organization that's been around for just about 23, 24 years. Most of that was based in the Baltimore area, but we've gone statewide, and we've also seen the importance of material support around transportation, around bridging the real divides that we have in the ability to be able to use technology. Our most extreme parts of Western Maryland, for instance, really struggle with reliable access to the internet and affordable access to the internet. So we've only been really formalized for a year now, but emergency care fund. And through this fund, like just for last year, we helped 17 of our leaders in some significant way with an emergency crisis. It's a modest fund. It's not a lot. As we've heard, we do not have the resources of the state. We deliberately know that we're not going to be able to solve all the problems our leaders come up against and our members come up against. But what we do is, and this is about, again, being able to step in and help support someone in the midst of an important immediate crisis, but recognizing those leaders are developing themselves and they're committed to developing other leaders in the future. So we need them. We even see that the limitations that our system is imposing upon us gives us the opportunity to present the political challenge back. So we learn from what our leaders go through as well. When one of our leaders got her food stamps, a young mother with a child with special needs got her food stamps cut to $23. We didn't just take that. That leader developed her leadership even more with our support. She went through the state of Maryland to file the appeal to that. She went and testified in an administrative court hearing, which was a new experience for all of us. We all learned. We supported her in that process. We learned from it. We learned that the system stacked against us because the administrative judge ended up saying the cut was fair. And so we are also able to expose, again, once more, the cruelty of the system. So again, this is something that you might want to consider, how to care for the leaders that we're developing. We found this care fund to be a critical need of support. Again, it's very modest, but it's been really helpful. We helped 17 leaders. Those leaders, primarily 2/3 of those leaders that were helped came from our central and western Maryland regions, our newer regions. And the overwhelming issue that we needed to help with most was around housing, around eviction prevention, or even with people who had homes, helping them fix a furnace for the winter. Transportation was the second most critical need. These things can fluctuate, obviously, year after year, but I would just say that material needs are just as important. Those are perhaps the most concrete, immediate, urgent ways we see it, but this emotional support is also, both come at the same time. We have to provide emotional support as we're providing material support. So really appreciate what Marcy and Jamie just shared. And again, I'll just pass this now to Amy from Vermont, who I know has more to share about what they're doing up in Vermont around our need for community care.
Mm. Thank you, Father Ty and Jamie and Marcy. I'm going to continue this thread of definitions, and in doing that, share a story of a leader. Again, I'm Amy Lester. I'm with the Vermont Worker Center, and I've been a member of our care team for a number of years, but I've been thinking about community care and how we sustain ourselves for a lot longer. The one thing I want to say before getting into this story is that we love our class. That's why all of us are on this call. We love our class, and everything we do is about supporting us, supporting ourselves. And we also know that there are mental fortresses that we incorporate into our everyday thinking that tells us that someone is that we need to do something for someone, that's the way you help people. And this is the top-down approach, right, that was spoken about earlier, the charity. I think there actually is a slide if you want to put that up. It's just some pictures of some folks. But in looking, thinking about how, if a leader needs help with their SNAP benefits it's confusing right now. March 1st is coming. What's going to happen? And, an agency would probably say, this is the paperwork. This is what's going to happen. Just fill out the forms, which are extremely lengthy. And confusing, or just wait to see what happens. And like Father Ty and others talked about, we had a leader whose benefits were cut from $256 to $38, like boom, without an explanation. Like, how are people going to absorb that? And then, before the pandemic, and especially during the pandemic, we heard a lot, and probably you all participated in mutual aid.
right? A mutual aid transaction between peers that helps us meet our everyday material needs. So, for example, there we have food distributions, which is actually where we go and we help and we meet folks there. The community meals give us a chance to eat a hot meal. Sometimes these meals are given even in to-go containers. So there's actually not even a chance to have a conversation. Um, but folks are meeting people's needs, right, by providing this food. Maybe they're also warm clothes. Maybe there's a free laundry day that's being sponsored. These are great examples of mutual aid, and they just don't quite meet the mark for organizing, for helping folks beat the system, right? So our leader, I'm just going to say Mary, comes to a pop-up health clinic. She helps participate in it. And there's also a weekly community meal where this is organized. Um, and the information is there about the SNAP cuts, the work requirements. We can help people, we can help folks fill out forms right there if they need it. And we also know where are the nearest health clinics if they do have to get like a doctor's note for the to get out of work requirements, or what sharing stories about this is what happened to me when I went into the office, or this is how I filled out the form, so people are sharing their stories as well. Um, and we talk about why this is. We live in a land of plenty, and yet there is um, not enough food supposedly for us, or the benefits are getting cut. So we don't have access to food. So this providing this political education, meeting spiritual and emotional needs by helping folks not feel alone and by sharing our stories is crucial in taking care of ourselves and part of the community care. We and then we're also asking folks, do you have, to bring their neighbors and bring their friends. That's part of leadership development, is to pull in other people um, and join the ranks, so to speak. So, we can't meet everyone's material needs, but we can organize our people. And in fact, that is the most important thing we can do, is organize, develop leaders. So yeah, listening to Marcy and Jamie and Father Ty, and thinking about the projects of survival is really what helps sustain us for the long haul. And I appreciate being here tonight.
Well, thank you so much, Amy. Hey, everybody. Joe Paparone here. He, him. I'm in Albany, New York, organizing with the NVMA, the National Union of Homeless, and the Poor People's Campaign. You can go ahead to that next slide. I'm going to talk us really briefly through some of the tactics of our organizing drive, our Medicaid and SNAP organizing drive, and how community care is woven throughout all of that. You've heard a bunch of this stuff already. I don't know why I help plan these calls. I don't know why I keep putting myself after such like rock star amazing leaders. But I'm going to highlight a couple things and then we'll have breakout groups. So this quote that Jamie and Marcy shared earlier from Dr. King, I want to actually emphasize the second half of the quote, where King says, there are millions of poor people in this country who have very little or even nothing to lose. If they can be helped to take action together, they will do so with a freedom and a power that will be a new and unsettling force in our complacent national life. If they can be helped to take action together, that is such a key thing, because we're so socialized to being helpers, right? Like, you're here because you want to help solve these problems, But King is talking about a very specific kind of help. And it's a help that, like, we all need to break the mental fortress of rugged individualism around. We all need to figure out how we can take action together and how to help others take action together. So if you want to go to the next slide, there's a few bullet points and some photos there just of our tactics. If this is your first call, I'm going to talk about some of our tactics you might be a little less familiar with. If you've been around for a bit, then you've heard of some of these things like our people's clinics and some of the other things we've done as part of our organizing drive. But keep that King quote in mind, right? All of the tactics of our organizing drive are about uniting the poor to take action together, to identify and develop and connect leaders of our class who can grow and deepen that unity. And when we talk about tactics in any sort of like movement building space, sometimes there's, I think, a false choice that's foisted upon us. There's the folks who want to talk about, whatever works, just what works. And they think there's like a silver bullet magic tactic that's going to suddenly solve all our problems. And then on the other side of that, there's folks who don't really take any evaluation of things that are working. And it's very idealized. It's like, oh, well, you don't know what kind of impact you might have. And it's just very ethereal. And there's something to each of those. But that's a false choice. We don't need to pick between pragmatism and idealism. We want to be serious and disciplined and clear and take every opportunity to build the power of our class. And so that's what we're doing when we're engaging in these tactics. What works is building a united movement of the poor and dispossessed who are clear, competent, committed, and connected. And so all of these tactics are oriented around that goal to build that movement. So in our people's clinics, when we're inviting folks to talk about their healthcare experiences, right? We're not just collecting stories, to post on social media. We post on social media for the purpose of breaking down that isolation, that individualism that teaches us that our problems are ours and ours alone, right? When we invite folks to share their stories on a story wall, to vision what a society would look like if healthcare or housing or food were human rights, right? We're inviting people into a new kind of collectivity, but we only do that through the conversations, the organizing conversations that we have with folks in those moments. Similarly, when we walk with folks through the process, the deeply demoralizing and frustrating process of signing up for Medicaid, making an appeal when you've been denied, navigating SNAP and the work requirements, anything that has to do with your Department of Social Services or Social Security, right? We are encouraging folks that their class, there are members and leaders in their class who are on their side, who are with them, right? To help them meet those needs in that moment, but also to fight to change that system. I got to tell you, sitting with somebody in the Department of Social Services is a great time to have conversations about why we got to go through this stupid bureaucracy and why they had to take off work for a half a day or a full day to wait until their number's called so they can be told, no, actually, they didn't bring the right paperwork that day and they need to come back another time, right? Like there is nothing more agitating than that process, but it's only agitating in a positive way, in a way that builds the power of our class if we're there to have those conversations. Similarly, when we do call-in days or legislative visits, right? Sometimes these tactics get written off really quickly as just kind of, surfacey things, shouting into the wind. I know I have felt that way sometimes. When we did our call-in days last year before the federal budget, we made sure that it was a political education and organizing opportunity, right? We didn't just send people to make calls and that was it. We brought folks together to debrief to talk about what we learned, what we were learning through that process, right? Both mechanically of like how to reach these offices, but also the intelligence really about, okay, what are these politicians thinking in this moment of crisis, right? What are their staffers? How are they responding? Are we learning anything about, even the wider neighborhood and community, right? Like what are they getting thousands and thousands of hundreds of calls about, right? Because that might shape how we organize. And lastly, I think this is related a little bit to what I was saying in terms of the signups and appeals in the social services office is accompaniment, right? Like the bureaucratic system, it beats people up in the ways when they're applying for the things that we deserve, that we're entitled to, and also when we're being ejected from our homes, whether that's eviction courts, those kinds of proceedings. we haven't, it's shifted a little bit in the past few years, but I used to do a lot of immigration appointment accompaniment, right? Like walking with folks through that terrifying process, right? There's aspects of emotional and material support all tied up in that. And again, opportunities to connect with our class, to demonstrate the love for our class that is going to be necessary to bind our people together so that we can take action together. If they can be helped to take action together. That's the central thing woven throughout all of these tactics. So if you join us at future calls, we will dive into our people's clinics and some of these tactics much more thoroughly than we can right now. And I'm seeing so many awesome comments in the chat. But with that, we're only a little bit behind. We're going to have a good 15 or 18 minutes in breakout groups. You can go to the next slide.